When we've made the beautiful decision to bring a human being into this world, a lot of our focus is usually on getting pregnant and then the pregnancy itself. But what happens on the other side? The act of delivery, whether that be natural or cesarean, of having a brand new, demanding little human in your life can put a lot of pressures on mom. So today we're going to talk about what to expect on the other side of delivery. When you have this little creature who's so dependent on you, and some of the issues that we can run into, be that constipation, energy, depression, lactation issues. Like, what do we do to support first-time moms or new moms? My name is Miranda Wiley. I am a mom first, got two kids, and I'm a naturopathic doctor second. Quite literally, I fit it into my time off as much as I can. And joining me today is Marisette Santiago. She is also a mother of a beautiful toddler and a naturopathic doctor as well, who focuses on women's health. Hello, Marisette.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. I think this is going to be a fun chat, sort of mom to mom.
Yes.
How was your labor and delivery? How did you find the launch into motherhood?
So it's interesting, as you were saying, that we have focused on the pregnancy and the labor and getting pregnant and whatnot, and we don't really think about the other side of things. And it was kind of like a rude awakening almost for me, because I feel like I felt really depleted afterwards. Like, I had a non-medicated labor and delivery, but my labor it was basically 3 days long. That including early labor. So when things are kind of just getting started and you're getting the Braxton Hicks and everything, but that lasted like 3 full days. So it was quite long and taxing on my body. And so I felt really depleted afterward. And so I think, yeah, it's super important to have these conversations about postpartum and whatnot, because everything, all of the nutrients that your body is kind of making for the baby, you need to kind of replenish them afterward in the postpartum period. And nobody even really thinks about that. Everyone just says, oh, continue to take your prenatal and whatnot. So I know that there were other things that were super helpful in kind of getting me back on track and helping me feel a little bit more energized and whatnot to be able to care for a baby. I think, like, there's a quote that people always say, like, mothers need just as much attention as newborn babies, because it kind of takes a village. It's that whole thing with
so
kind of,
rarely get it.
Yeah, exactly. And then even with the postpartum as well, like, it's interesting how in our medical system, it's only like, oh, up to 6 weeks. Okay. Then you're good to go. You're off, and you can just kind of, there's no real support afterward for your health and kind of heal the rest of the healing that your body's going through. So I find for me, that was a bit tricky.
Fair enough. I had quite the opposite. My first pregnancy, I went into labor just before 26 weeks, 25 weeks and 5 days. And 30 hours later, I was having a baby on an operating table. So an emergency cesarean.
Okay.
From unmedicated, I counted 17 different medications, be it oral, IV, injection, rectal, suppository. Like, I had so many meds thrown at me. So it was a very, very, very different launch. And then I came out with a 2-pound micropreemie in an incubator where I didn't get to hold. And so it was also a very sort of terrifying launch into motherhood, because there was a lot of fear involved. My daughter came 4 years later, and she ended up being full term. But because of my experience with the unplanned emergency cesarean with such a small fetus, she ended up, she had to be a planned cesarean. If I had been able to have a natural labor, I would have been in an OR, ready for, like, the scalpels sharpened, everything, like, good to go, just in case something went wrong. And it didn't come that way. So either way, I mean, whether it was the term baby or the preemie, it was still just, it's exhausting. You've just been through, the hormonal shift of going from pregnant to not pregnant, regardless of how that happens, be it natural delivery or a cesarean birth. It's a big shock on the system. There's healing to be done. Like, I understand natural deliveries aren't so fun. And operations are also, like, it's a lot of trauma on the system.
Yeah, exactly. And even so, like, the postpartum period where, like you said, like, the hormonal shifts and whatnot, there's changes to your anatomy, your physiology, your immune system, your brain, even there's all that research on the mommy brain, which is actually a thing, is that that way for a reason, so that you can tend to your baby and whatnot, which is why you kind of forget about everything else that you're supposed to be doing in life.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's pretty tricky. And for me, one of the things that I found like immediately after that was helpful was using magnesium.
For
I
sure.
mean, so not just for obviously being able to have like an easier bowel movement, because in my labor I had a lot of downward pressure, and so I found that helpful. I wasn't necessarily constipated, but I just found it eased it a lot more. Um, and then the magnesium, as we know, is great for calming your nerves. And so that was really helpful. It kind of just keeping me relaxed and not as like tense, and just feeling a little bit more, just calm.
Yeah,
Just
a little
very
calmer.
calm.
The muscle relaxation, right? There's all that sort of tension adjustment, even just like holding a baby for extended periods of time, and muscles start to tighten up, and having magnesium there to
Exactly.
help with that relaxation and
Yeah.
the mental struggles of well, just everything calming. Get sleep when you can. I was medicated, so some of the morphine drugs were constipating to a degree, and then come off of those. The
Oh,
magnesium
right.
certainly helped. First time around, I didn't have magnesium. I had nothing. We didn't have a hospital bag. Second time around, I was able to prepare and be ready
Get
for that
everything
onslaught
ready. Yeah.
of the drugs and what they're going to
Yeah.
have on effect on my body. What about
Yeah.
breastfeeding? Because one of those hormonal changes is the shift from like baby's out, okay, time for those to kick in. Was that an easy, natural transition for you, or did you have any milk supply issues, or how was that?
So with breastfeeding, it took me a while to get it. Like, obviously, we're both learning and whatnot, me and the baby. And so it probably took a good, like, I would say almost 2 months until I was like super comfortable with it and like having the milk flow in properly. I actually did have an issue with blocked clogged ducts.
Uh-huh.
So that happened quite often, and that was super painful. But I figured out some tricks and tips with that. I did use a lot of like omegas and whatnot.
Yep.
And what else did I use? I used
Sunflower lecithin? Did you bring
yes.
that in? Yeah.
I was just gonna say less thin, so that was really helpful as well. So I kind of, as soon as I figured that was really helpful, I just like took it nonstop, continuously. So that was really good. And then yeah, even now I am still nursing my toddler.
I did
And
3 years
not
for
like,
both kids.
yeah, not routinely, but it's like, yeah, I think it's just because of the pandemic and stuff, and it's such a comfort thing for him. So he's still all over it. But yeah, so it's still going strong.
Awesome. Awesome. So you never had any milk supply issues?
Well, no supply issues, but I think the main thing was the clogged ducts. Oh, the other thing I did was I took a botanical tincture, but I used like all of the main galactagogues. So like the fenugreek, the blessed thistle, fennel. I also actually added in motherwort and kava kava just to kind of help.
Nice.
Yeah,
Really relaxing.
calm me down. Yes, yeah.
Yeah. I was like a fire hydrant from the get-go. And then we got the point, because as my son, he was being fed on tube. So I was pumping exclusively for the first little bit. And then as we started transitioning to feeds, I would choke him. And he'd go, and then
wow.
he would turn blue and gray. And then the nurses would come in and intervene. So I had to slow down my milk supply, which stress helped with that. But then it slowed down so much. So then I was stressed out because I needed to bring it back. So it was such a fine juggling act of finding that right level that he could swallow on a consistent basis, because he was small, and his muscles were sort of very uncoordinated. And sort of, so dealing with that stress of like, how do we tone this down? How do we bring it back when I've gone too far the other way? And now I'm freaking out that I'm missing out on this breastfeeding opportunity. I'm going to, be pumping out an ounce every here and there. So used brewer's yeast. I threw that into like food, or I had my mom did, because she was helping and cooking. And same, the fenugreek, the fennel. Finally got into like moringa tea. I found it at the local health food store, and it's just like, it's a green, nutrient rich beverage. Tastes just nice and herby, but it was also another way to kind of support milk production.
I just heard of that recently with the moringa, that it has like all those great nutrients and whatnot, and it's helpful for that. And that would have been awesome if I knew that. Yeah, I could have thrown that into my tincture as well.
We're always learning. But moms and doctors, we're always learning.
Yeah, exactly.
What other supplements did you take? Did you take like a B complex for stress or energy? I mean, fatigue is such a thing with newborn moms, but
Yeah.
on one hand, kind of expected because you're not sleeping more
Yeah.
than an hour or 2 or 3 hours at most.
Yeah. I did basically like they're basically my standards is like the B complex, vitamin D. The B complex as well was just, yeah, helpful for giving me that energy in the morning and whatnot. And kind of helping with like, and like obviously as we are going to have deficiencies after the birth and whatnot. So kind of taking that on top of taking my prenatal, like continuing to take my prenatal. And so that's the other thing is that nowadays that's what we tell most of our patients is like, just like postpartum, after you have the baby, still continue to take the prenatal so that you can have all of those vitamins and nutrients and whatnot. But it's great that now there are products that are specific for postpartum.
Yeah, the Mega Food postnatal specific for new mom, whether she's breastfeeding or not.
Exactly.
Yeah, really specific nutrient levels. That would have been nice to have back in the day. Did well with the baby and me. I continued that until I was done breastfeeding. But yeah, the postnatal would have been lovely then, and it's a nice boon for the moms now.
Exactly. It's kind of like a long time coming because that just goes to show like how we only focus on the pregnancy and then don't even think about afterward, right? Like how many years has it been? Decades and decades of no actual postnatal.
Yeah, targeting specifically mom and her recovery and her ability to care for another human being emotionally and physically and in so many ways. Yeah. Was mood an issue for you, or was that fine?
Yes, it was. And so that's why I added it. Like, that's why I found the magnesium and the kava and that stuff helped, because I found that I just felt a little bit more anxious than I usually was. And like, yeah, I never really had any issues with having anxiety and whatnot, but I think because of like a new mom and it's my first time around, didn't really know what to expect. And so I think my mood in terms of my mental health was that I was just always like worried, more on the worried side. So I found that that's why the magnesium and the other stuff in the tincture really helped to kind of calm my nerves.
Yeah. I went full depression. Granted, I mean, I'd planned on having a term baby and a natural birth. I was a week away from ordering the water pool for our place. I had, midwives lined up, and then all of a sudden the pregnancy's over, was robbed of that entire third trimester. It took me a good 3-4 months where I could at least like pass by a pregnant woman on the street and not burst into tears. So a lot of magnesium, went pretty high dose on the vitamin D as well, just to drink every little thing I could up for mood. Herbs were a little bit trickier just because, on the one hand, you don't know what's passing through into the milk. And I wasn't staying at home and researching. I was bedside at the hospital the whole time. Yeah. On the other hand, it was also really comforting because they give baby so many drugs that I'm like, wow, kids can really tolerate a lot, 2 pounds, and they're giving it morphine and caffeine and fentanyl and like, oh my God, what's this doing to my little baby's liver? But they know how to do it. So that also took a lot of the pressure off of myself. Like, oh, of course I can take the morphine for my own pain and not worry about what's coming through in the breast milk because they're giving him morphine directly. So there was a nice sort of comfort zone with learning about what babies can tolerate and what I could do to support myself and not worry about interrupting his growth and development.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I think looking back, I think I did feel probably a little bit more anxious and worried because I had my kid like right in the thick of the pandemic. So like he was born in January and then all of a sudden like lockdown and
everything shut down,
isolations and everything. Yeah. So like it was basically just us and like weren't really able to have like family around and whatnot. But the one thing that is great is that my husband was home and kind of able to bond with him more so than he would have if he had been going to work every day, right? So kind of like
but no like mom groups, no, the walks in the park, the library things.
Yeah, no community there. So that was a little bit harder.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. But we made it through. He's 2 years old now and thriving and socializing and
exactly. Yeah. And now he's like in preschool and loving it. Yeah.
It's amazing how resilient the kids are. I mean, we couldn't socialize because my son got a cold. He'd go to hospital. And now he's 8 years old, super social, lots of friends. Right. So it was would have loved to have had those things when he was a baby, but again, they can adapt. And likewise with moms, like you get so, I would find it like I'd be so stuck in like this moment is exhausting and it's never going to end and I'm never going to sleep again and I'm never going to have a hot meal again and I'm never going to have a hot bath again. And then it's like they're constantly changing and growing and like, okay, now I'm sleeping through the night. My kids are sleeping through the night. This is like it's getting out of that little tunnel vision of everything focused on this tiny creature and sacrificing yourself for them to now going like, I'm a better mom if I'm rested, if I'm nourished, if I've gone for a walk, if I've meditated, like I'm a better for my children if I look after myself.
Yes.
So the way
I
of putting
totally
them first.
agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the thing is too, is like, I think with motherhood and even just like going back to like the labor and stuff, the key is like being able to just surrender to how things go, like not having those clear expectations of like, this is the way things need to be. Because that just helps you kind of roll along and float along with.
And I did not have that the first time around.
Things happen.
I was 100% sold on the naturopathic labor. And so now when I work with patients and they're pregnant and like, let's talk about your birth plan. But my advice is don't get too attached to it. Ultimately, you just want a happy, healthy baby on the other side. So if you tear, if there's an intervention, if there's forceps, none of that in the grand scheme of things really matters. We can have our ideals, but with kids, you have to learn how to roll with it. Like they're going to freak out because you gave them the wrong spoon. So you gotta be able to just dance with where they're at and where you're at.
Yeah, that's what I say too as well. Like with the birth plan, like I call it birth preferences because it's like it's key to have a birth plan because you kind of want to put out there like what you envision and whatnot. But having birth preferences where like if say for example you end up having to have a C-section, then what do you want to happen in this case, right? So it's kind of like so that you're prepared either way, and that way you can kind of roll with punches that way. Yeah.
It's all about being flexible for the rest of your lives. Awesome. Well, I think that was sort of the big things, the mood, energy, bowel function, milk. Was there anything sort of else, sort of new mom expectations, ideas that you want to share or?
No, I think we covered
a lot of the
things.
A lot of the key things. Look after yourself as much as you can. Accept help. Like there was a good lesson in I don't need to say no. Like, do you want this? Yes, I do. I want you to come help me. I want you to hold my baby while I take a shower. I want.
The other thing too is that I would say to new moms is that like you're gonna get advice from everyone, and you're gonna be reading about every little thing, what to do, the main thing is just to trust your own intuition. Like you know what's right for your baby and for yourself in the end, and just go with your gut basically.
My husband's quote is that there's a million ways to raise a kid and they're all wrong according to somebody. So do what you need to do. Co-sleep or don't co-sleep, breastfeed or bottle feed. Like it doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. I don't remember what I was like as a 5-month-old. Like it's just do what you need to do to get through and enjoy because it goes so quickly. You've got a newborn for 3 months. You've got a baby for a year, a toddler for 2 years. It just try and just stay present in that moment. Do lots of deep breathing. Remember why you did this. We love these children, and just stay in the moment as much as you can and look after yourself, sleep, walk, meditate, eat, do all that general self-care.
100%.
Awesome. Well, this has been a lot of fun. I've really enjoyed chatting with another mom.
Me too.
And one who kind of has the same sort of medical ethic and background. So for anyone who is navigating new motherhood or about to navigate new parenthood, we hope this has been helpful and enlightening and that you're not alone. You can talk to any parent out there, mother or father, and they're going to have very sort of similar experiences with those early months and then ongoing into life and childhood. So thanks very much for joining us and congratulations on this new phase of your lives. We're really happy for you.